Okay, guys, so let's come to our next lesson, our last video for the reindeers of the Santa Claus. Okay, are you ready? One more time. Are you ready? Yes, good job. So Tony, he turned into the girl, and he drives the car to the earth. Later that day, sorry, he's so amazed by the light of the Christmas day. So he goes to the luxury restaurant and drinks 85 cups of milk tea. Okay, so let's come to our next one. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, later that day, he fall asleep. Oh, I'm over. 85 cups of milk tea. And later that day, he fall asleep. So what happened to Tony later that day? Yeah, he fall asleep. Who fall asleep later that day? Yeah, Tony. Tony, he fall asleep later that day. Does Tony go to the bar later that day? No, he didn't go to the bar. He falls asleep. Over. Oh no. I'm over. Tony said that later that day. He fall asleep. So when is Tony fall asleep? Later that day. So why? When is Tony fall asleep? Why? Well, we know, because he drinks 85 cups of milk tea, and he over. Yeah, and later that day he fall asleep. You know, and when he wakes up, he turns back into the reindeer. When he wakes up, what happened? What happened to Tony? What happened to Tony when he wake up? Yeah, he turns back into the reindeer. Reindeer? Oh, he turned back into the reindeer. Yeah, he turned back into the reindeer, right? Yeah, good job. So, who turned back into the reindeer? Who turned back into the reindeer? Tony. Yeah, Tony. Tony. He turned back into the reindeer. The reindeer of the Santa Claus. So, later that day, he turned back into the reindeer. So, how long have Tony been a girl? Well, only for one day. Okay, only for one day. He's just a girl only for one day. So later that day, he fall asleep, and when he wakes up, he turned back into the reindeer. He turned back into the reindeer of the Santa Claus already. So who turned back into the reindeers? Yeah, Tony. Yeah, Tony turned back into the reindeer. So the magic is finished. The magic only in one day. Only one day to be the girl. And when he wakes up in the morning, the next day, he turned back into the reindeer. So, who turned back into the reindeer? Yeah, Tony. Tony, he turned back into the reindeer. So, what kind of reindeer does Tony turn back into? Well, the magical reindeers of the moon. Yeah, of the Santa Claus. Yeah, the reindeer of the Santa Claus. And later that day, he falls asleep because he drank 85 cups of milk tea. And when he wakes up, he turned back into the reindeer. So he has to come back to the moon and work normally. Who had to come back to the moon and work normally? Yeah, Tony. Tony, he had to come back. He has to come back to the moon and work normally. He becomes a reindeer of the Santa Claus, and now he need to come back to the moon, and he need to work normally. Okay, so where did Tony need to come back to? Where did Tony need to come back to? Yeah, to the moon. He need to come back to the moon and be the reindeer of the Santa Claus already. Yeah. Who had to come back to the moon? Tony. Yes, Tony. He has to come back to the moon, and he becomes the reindeer of the Santa Claus. Okay, so this is the end of the lesson for the reindeer of the Santa Claus, and I want you all to listen to this mini story again and again and again until you can finish this. Okay, thank you very much. Goodbye.